Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses. In Secretary Gates' books, he discusses the extraordinary measures he had to take to get the MRAPs fielded to our troops to save lives. And I think that's not the only story we have of where we've needed to really go around the entire system to get to our men and women in uniform life-saving equipment and the best, so that we could make sure that they're protected and we're able to address what we needed to do to fight the enemy on the ground. So what do you all take from the MRAP experience, and how do we, especially as we think about our engagement in conflicts, and we're still obviously engaged in Afghanistan, we're fighting this war against ISIS, and we've been notably bad at predicting what our next conflict will be. How do we avoid this? What lessons do we take from that, from what he described he had to do to get the MRAPs to the troops?
Sure, I have sort of two observations on the MRAP. The first is that the defense acquisition system and all the requirements and things are super important for us to all comply with them, unless we have an important and urgent need and where it really matters to deliver it. And then we sort of throw that out the window and we come up with a new rapid approach. And so this idea that, we can only be fast when we have to be is sort of a weird perverse incentive that goes on. With the MRAP, the leadership made it very clear this needs to be done quickly and spend as much money as you need to. So what happened? It was done quickly and we spent a lot of money. I wonder what would have happened if they had said it needs to be done quickly and it needs to be thrifty, and we need to plan for future upgrades. But again, those goals weren't as clearly emphasized.
Do you think that that's what distinguishes the Virginia-class success, where we had a measurable, it has to be done in this period, this amount of money, and this is how much we have to produce?
I do, and I think that the tendency, again, to hit the goals that we set is very strong. We've got a great track record of doing that. And again, with the MRAP, they said, hey, speed matters, cost doesn't matter so much, so we got it fast and it was expensive. But the idea of faster, better, cheaper, pick two, that's the one conclusion that the data absolutely doesn't support. It's possible to simultaneously improve all three dimensions, the speed, the quality, and the performance, and the cost. We can only pick two, and if we do only pick two, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's possible to pick all three. And the Virginia, I think, is a great example of when we've done that.
Senator, I think that the MRAP example shows that our system is geared for crisis. The thing that really concerns me is that we're getting to a point where the size of the crisis required to drive change is greater than the crisis we're trying to respond to in the world, at which point we've lost. We didn't just lose that conflict, we've lost all conflicts. So it also shows that the only way to succeed in crisis is to go around the system. We saw that with the MRAP. We saw that even in the 1970s and 80s with the second offset strategy. That was Bill Perry managing around the system. It's a call for the action that you guys are already taking. So I get incredibly frustrated. The answer is always change the system. And the one thing that we don't seem to be able to do is change the system. We can't afford to, in the current environment, we can't assume that we're going to be able to jam through one or two capabilities to get us out of a jam in the future, given the range of threats that we face.
I wanted, before my time goes up, Dr. Gansler, I want to ask you about something that which I think is related to this as well. In your written statement, you emphasize the importance of utilizing best value. And one provision that I've got included in the defense authorization this year is to really focus on, in particular, on the personal protective equipment that are critical to life or death for our troops, of making sure that it's not, that it's best value. I mean, obviously best value in terms of best equipment and best cost, doing it both. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, since you mentioned that in your...
I've been very shocked by the fact that we've been drifting towards low price technically acceptable as a source selection criteria. I mean, you and I don't buy that way.
Well, especially when it means bullets are coming at us and we want to make sure that we're protected.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
It's like when you're going cold weather hiking, do you get the cheapest thing you can find, or you get the thing that keeps you warm and so that you don't get frostbitten?
Exactly. I mean, why we don't use best choice, combination of performance and cost. That's the way I think the DoD should be buying today.
So my time is running up, so I've got 10 seconds here, Mr. Augustine. You talked about In-Q-Tel. I've been very impressed with their success. What can we learn from that experience, from In-Q-Tel and that?
I think that it put very shortly is it's going to take a long time to fix this system. And in the meantime, for those things that are really important, take them out of the system and treat them separately.
The irony, of course, the fact that we have to essentially go around the system to get something so important to our men and women on the ground and to our war fighters is that it's supposed to be set up to be war fighting and defend the nation.
And then once that contingency is over, we shut down the system that we created to go around.
It's unbelievable because there's always going to be another contingency, and that's what we need to be dynamic enough to address.
So my proposal is sort of shift the default. We have the rapid method that we only use in emergencies, and we have the big, expensive, complicated one. How about the rapid be the default approach, and you only do the big, expensive, complicated one when you have to?
Sounds great. Thank you.
You might also think about the distinction that Clay Christensen points out between disruptive technology and traditional incremental technology. And we're having trouble funding the disruptive technologies, the new innovation stuff. And that's the direction that we should be moving because the world is changing rapidly. Technology is changing, geopolitics are changing rapidly, but a tradition constrains us to thinking that what we've been doing for the past 30 years is the right thing to continue doing.
Senator King.